With the release of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3 releasing just a couple of days ago, I thought now would be the perfect time to give Izuku Sukuna's powers. I hope you all do enjoy this video. Please make sure to comment your what if suggestions down the comment section below. I will be replying to as many comments as I can, and please make sure to join the Discord in the description, and a link will also be on the pinned comment. I thank you all for watching, and enjoy! We start this what if just like any other. Izuku learns that he is quirkless. However, something is different this time. Izuku looks the doctor in the eyes. This small, 4-year-old, green-haired child looks him dead in the eyes and says, "No, I'm going to be a hero." His heart and his soul demand that Izuku becomes a hero, and he looks this doctor straight in the eyes and tells him, "I'm going to be a hero." And nothing is going to stop that. Izuku is determined. He is ready to prove himself, even at just 4 years old. Inko looks at him and shakes her head softly. "Sweetie, it's okay," she says, as soft tears form in her eyes, while the doctor looks at Izuku and then looks back at Inko. "You know, kid, it's okay to have realistic goals, he says with a soft chuckle, with Izuku just looking at him again. "I am going to become a hero." Izuku and Inko travel back to their home, while Inko hugs Izuku after they get out of the car. "It's okay, sweetie. It's okay," she says, as the tears finally form and start flowing down her face. But Izuku isn't fazed. He is fine. "It's okay, Mom," he says. "I know what I can do." He is so determined at such a young age, which, in a way, is going to come back to bite him. Upon Izuku going back to school the following day, all of the kids know he went to the quirk doctor's office. They eagerly surround him and ask him, Izuku, what's your quirk? What's your quirk?" They were all so excited when Bakugo, Izuku's best friend, awakened his quirk, this explosion, fire crackly quirk, that they couldn't wait to see what Izuku could do. But Izuku just stood there. I don't have one," he said softly. I'm quirkless." Izuku looks around as his classmates' faces give off one of disgust. "Ew," some of the girls say, recoiling back away from him. "You're quirkless?" they say, as Izuku just nods his head. "Yup, I am," Izuku says, having a sudden burst of just energy. He's owning it, and something no one thought he would. "I am quirkless, so what? That doesn't mean I'm not going to become a hero." Some of the kids with quirks laugh at him, especially Bakugo. Bakugo stepping up. "You're going to become a hero? Quirkless?" he says, such rage-filled words, something you never would have expected from someone whose literal best friend used to be Izuku before he found out he was quirkless. Izuku pumps his fist in the air. "Yup, I'm gonna become the first quirkless hero," Izuku says, smiling wide, as Bakugo goes in and punches him. This 4-year-old in preschool punching another kid. The teacher sees this, but doesn't do anything. Yet another example of the treatment that quirkless people receive in this society. However, Izuku doesn't let that stop him. He just laughs. "You think you can become a hero, punching someone less than you?" "I don't think so." Izuku's words cut deep like a knife into Bakugo, making Bakugo more rage-filled, until the teacher finally decides to step in. "That's enough, Bakugo." We time skip around 10 years as Izuku is now 14 years old. His hope and his determination are still alive and well. He is going to become a hero, and nothing is going to stop him. He looks up to All Might so very much, but he knows he will never be that powerful. He knows it, but that's not going to stop him. He is going to be an icon for quirkless people everywhere. He is going to do what so many of them couldn't. So, with Izuku's final bell of middle school on the horizon, his teacher sits there twiddling his thumbs. All right, class. To pass the time, why don't we say what we all want to be in high school, or what are we going to be as a career? He goes one by one, asking each student where they want to go to high school and what they want to do, until it finally lands on Izuku. The following student, Bakugo, had said with a sly smirk, "I'm gonna go to UA and become the #1 hero," Bakugo says, as the entire class erupts in cheers. They know how powerful he is, and they believe he can do it. But with Izuku, not so much. Izuku stands up on his seat. "I'm gonna become a hero too and go to UA as well." This time the reaction is different. The class bursts into laughter. "You, a hero? Don't kid yourself, Izuku. You're nothing more than a worthless Deku, just like what Bakugo says." Many of the classmates sneer at him, laughing and bullying him even more. But Izuku just sits there and smiles. "I'll show all of you," he says, looking up. "I'll show all of you." The teacher demands Izuku to sit down as the bell finally rings. Izuku grabs his hero journal before standing back up and walking out of the class. However, someone stops him. It's Bakugo and his 2 goons standing side by side next to him. "Where do you think you're going, worthless Deku?" Bakugo says, singeing a small explosion right into Izuku's shoulder and collarbone. "Really, Bakugo? I thought you've learned by now," Izuku says, before going in for a punch as Bakugo swiftly dodges it and goes in to punch Izuku's stomach, which he dodges before swiftly turning around and racing away. Bakugo laughs at him. "You think you can get away this time, Deku? There's no school protecting you now," he says, launching himself towards Izuku as Izuku slams through the exit doors, continuing to run, slipping back into a back alley. Bakugo finds him there, which Izuku is suddenly saddened. The back alley, it was a dead end. Izuku takes one final step back before his back slowly reaches towards the cold concrete wall. Izuku's hairs on the back of his arms stand up. He puts his hands up. "It's okay, Bakugo. You know you don't have to do this. You want to be a hero after all, don't you?" Izuku says, which only rage baits Bakugo and infuriates him even more. "Shut up, Deku," he says, before snapping towards one of his goons. They reach into their backpack and pull out a baggie. Inside the bag is a long, decayed-looking finger. Bakugo smiles. "How many of these do you think you'll eat before you finally admit I'm so much better than you?" Bakugo says, taking the finger out of the bag and dangling it over Izuku. Izuku says, "What?" he says, stuttering. "What do you mean, eat?" Bakugo snaps his fingers again, pointing towards Izuku as both his goons go back, grabbing both of Izuku's arms as he struggles and fights against them. No, you can't be serious. You can't be," Izuku says as Bakugo laughs at him. "Oh, but I am. And you will eat it," he says as he reaches towards Izuku, grabbing his jaw, mending his jaw open as Izuku struggles, trying to bite down, as Bakugo sends an explosion right into Izuku's stomach. "That's just a warning shot, Deku. If you fight back against me again, the next one won't be so easy." As he reaches towards the finger, grabbing it and sliding it down Izuku's throat, forcing him to swallow it. Izuku's mouth burns as he coughs. What the heck, Bakugo? You're evil," he says, voice stuttering still, before laughing. "No, Deku, I'm not evil. I'm a hero. And how many more do you think it's gonna take before you finally admit that?" he says, reaching into his bag, pulling out another finger. As we cut to see deep inside Izuku, as something seems to be forming. Sukuna, he is basically merging into Deku just like he did into Yuji. Deku is becoming Sukuna's host. As Bakugo laughs towards Izuku, he slides another finger down his throat. This is unheard of. Izuku just became the host of Sukuna, and now he's taking a second of the 20 fingers. Bakugo, of course, not having them all, as him and his goons somehow, someway managed to find a couple of them just hidden in some box in the woods when they were exploring. With the third finger slid down Izuku's throat, Bakugo had given him the last one. "Wow, I'm kind of surprised," he says. "You really managed to swallow 3 of these weird finger things, and didn't manage to tell me I'm a hero?" "Impressive. Maybe you're not so worthless after all," he says before punching Izuku right in the cheek as Izuku falls down. Both Bakugo and his 2 goons decide to walk away. They've had enough fun for the day. Izuku stands up, his cheek bruised, as he walks home. As he opens the door, twisting the knob, Inko stands there looking towards him, worried. "Another bruise?" she says, as Izuku softly chuckles. "Yeah, my training, I gotta become a hero," Izuku says, almost in a sarcastic and ironic tone, as Inko softly chuckles. "Yeah," she says softly, as Izuku goes up towards his room. Izuku pulls his chair back from his desk before sitting down, looking at his notebook. Tears slowly stream from his face as he shakes his head. "I can do this. I can do this. I've got this." Izuku's words change as his mindset helps him once again. He is determined, and no matter how much he is bullied and how much an idiot like Bakugo tells him he can't, he will. He will become a hero. The next day comes as Izuku says goodbye to Inko. It's his summer break, as Izuku tells her that he is going to go train. He has to continue it, as if he's going to make UA and especially the hero classes as a hero, he has to become one of the most successful and best quirkless people to ever be able to do anything practically. So Izuku walks out. He trains at a martial arts gym to hopefully learn some hand-to-hand combat and how to protect himself. These gyms are pretty much a safe haven for quirkless people. Many of them go there so that they can at least have some line of protection if a quirked person comes in and trying to attack them. However, something stops Izuku as he goes on his trek to the gym. Izuku walking in these back alleys before walking under an overpass when a manhole cover explodes off as sludge starts seeping into the roadways. Finally, 2 eyes and a mouth appear with jagged, sharp teeth. It lunges towards Izuku, reaching down Izuku's throat as sludge piles into Izuku's body. The sludge villain laughs. "Don't fight it, kid. Just accept it." "You don't have a quirk, do you? Oh, this is just gonna be so much easier," he says, reaching deep into Izuku's body, trying to take hold of him as Izuku's heart slowly fades. The beat gets slower and slower until it stops. Izuku's lifeless body floats there in a pool of sludge as we see Izuku standing face to face with Sukuna. He looks towards him before offering him something, offering him a vow almost that Izuku has to lend him 1 minute of time that he can possess his body if he wants to survive. Izuku is just completely shocked by this. Who is this person? How is he basically in him, talking to him? Is he not dead? Izuku reaches towards his hand, no fight, as he's dead, and how is he going to become a hero if he's dead? He reaches towards his hand, taking the binding vow, shaking Sukuna's hand, agreeing to the terms. As Sukuna takes over, his eyes wide as 2 eyes form under Izuku's with the markings as well as the sludge villain explodes out of Izuku. He's shocked. What the hell? He thinks to himself. You were quirkless. What is this? He thinks to himself as sludge pools out of the Sukuna possessed Izuku's mouth. pitiful, he says, before slashing both the sludge villain's eyes clean in half as the sludge, once formed into this mound of villain, just completely is destroyed. It floats down as if a wave in the ocean, slamming into the road. The sludge villain dead. As Sukuna looks around, looking through the city, something's off, he says to himself. Where the hell am I? He looks around. This isn't the Jujutsu Kaisen world. Somehow, someway, him and his possessed or cursed objects, his fingers, had transported themselves into the My Hero Academia universe. However, the 1 minute was up, and Izuku took back control of his body. He looks towards himself, holding his chest. What the hell was that? He thinks to himself, smiling. Could that be some weird quirk? A mouth forms on Izuku's left cheek. Don't kid yourself, kid. Whatever you call these superpowers, these quirks, I'm not one of them, he says, as Izuku looks confused. Okay? Then what are you? Sukuna just laughs. You'll figure it out sooner or later, he says before disappearing. Izuku touches where the mouth was. This is so weird, Izuku thinks to himself before continuing off to the gym, going to continue his training. Like I said before, Izuku is extremely determined, and even if he just awoken some innate power, that's not going to stop his training. So with that, Izuku continues to train, even finding the Dagoba beach that is covered in trash, and slowly but surely taking all of the trash off the beach, restoring it to its former glory. This lends itself perfectly as Izuku is pretty much ripped now. He has a six-pack and abs, and he is super, super strong, especially for a quirkless person, which lends itself perfectly to Sukuna, who, even if Izuku wasn't, he would still be extremely strong. However, Izuku doing all this basically made him a perfect vessel for his powers. However, behind the scenes, something was basically seeping into Izuku's blood and his skin. Sukuna's cursed energy and techniques were leaching themselves into Izuku's body. Due to Izuku being the host and vessel of Sukuna, Izuku would slowly but surely be able to use these powers himself without having to be possessed by Sukuna. Sukuna, seeing how basically determined Izuku is and how much Izuku wants to succeed, and also seeing that the hero realm is quite interesting and quite powerful, at least in this world, he basically gives Izuku some tips. Izuku's cursed energy basically being awoken by Sukuna being inside of him. So Izuku has a very, very low level ability to use this cursed energy, drawing on the small bit that Izuku has within himself, as well as Sukuna's cursed energy, which, although massive, Izuku can only use a small portion of it when he is not possessed. So because of this, Sukuna decides to toy with Izuku, teaching him these basic fundamentals of using cursed energy, allowing for Izuku to have cursed energy around his fists and to use them as punches. So because of that, Izuku goes into the UA entrance exam extremely confident. Whatever had awoken within him, and this person, Sukuna, was helping him, teaching him, and he was inside of him. Pause. So while Izuku was using all of this, he allowed all of these abilities, his powers, to grow. So with the UA entrance exam, he passes the written exam with flying colors, but the real test is that hero and quirk test, that application test. So he walks into the city after leaving the written portion of the exam. He's confident, he's ready to fight. So walking in, he's smiling, he's ready. As the bell rings, he rushes into the city with cursed energy around his fists, punching each robot. His fists feel strong. They're hard. They punch through the metal with ease. This tough metal that UA had designed to be specifically hard to destroy, Izuku punches it with his cursed energy like it's nobody's business. He runs around. He's fast. All of those years of training and determination are paying off. He rushes around, punching robot after robot, gathering points upon points, until finally the bell rings again. A large horn blares over the intercom as all of the students around pause. The robots shut down as well. As they all look up, they hear Midnight's voice over the intercom state that the test is now over and that they are free to go home. Izuku smiles, counting up how many points he had. 66, he thinks to himself. That's gotta be enough, he says, shaking his head in confidence. Right, that has to be. His confidence wavering a little bit before walking out of UA. We cut forward 2 weeks to see Izuku race down towards the kitchen. Inko had just yelled up to him, "Izuku, honey, it's here." She wasn't so sure. All his life he had been training and preparing to become a hero, and this was the decision. Was he going to become a hero, or was he going to be a regular civilian who was quirkless? Izuku snatches the letter from Izuku, ripping open the seam, tearing out the letter as he unfolds it, reading it. The first word, "Congratulations." He smiles. He goes on reading it. "Izuku Midora, you have been selected for Class 1A of the freshman class at UA school." Izuku smiles. He's gonna be a hero. He can't believe it. He jumps up, pumping his fist. "I knew it!" he says in accomplishment. "I knew I could be a hero. I knew it, I knew it, I knew it." Inko's shocked. "What? I can't believe this. You got selected to the top hero class?" She says, looking towards Izuku as he smiles, opening up his arms, giving her a giant hug. I'm so proud of you, honey. I'm so proud." A couple of weeks pass as his UA uniform arrives in the mail as well. He puts it on as he looks in the mirror. "I can't believe this," he says once again. It all just seems so surreal to him. He was gonna be a hero, and a dang good one at that. Izuku takes it off and lays in his bed as he falls asleep. The next day would mark his first day of school. Izuku wakes up, his alarm blaring, ripping off his clothes, putting on his uniform, and rushing out of the door. He was so excited. He can do this, he thinks to himself. Rushing out the door as he makes it to UA, sliding open the giant 1A door, walking in, finding his seat. His teacher, Eraserhead, walks in after all the students are sat down. "Quiet," he says out loud, before telling them to go to the locker room and put their PE uniforms on in their selected lockers, and then go to Lot E. Upon all students doing this, he tosses a ball to Izuku first. "We're going to be testing all of your quirks. We'll start with you." He looks towards the clipboard. Izuku, is it? You scored among the top 5 for points against the robots. So let's see what you can do with this ball." He points out with his finger outstretched. "Throw it off in that direction." Izuku nods his head, reaching back. Cursed energy surrounds his hand as he throws it off into the distance. The ball goes flying. His classmates are shocked as Aizawa looks towards the ball. A tracker within it tells him through an app. 1,000 meters. Good job. He tosses the ball to Bakugo next as Bakugo throws it. 2,000 meters. He smirks. "This is going to be interesting," he says, tossing the ball to the next student. One by one, the students go, as no one manages to pass that 2,000 meter mark. Barely anybody even passing Izuku's mark. Well, I guess it seemed we opened with the two strongest students. So now, let's go to the races, he says to himself. Well, not to himself, to the class. As they all nod, they walk over to the track, lining up as the racer head shoots a blank into the air with a gun. All of the students race off, rushing towards the finish line as Izuku crosses first in his heat. Aizawa clocks his stopwatch before saying Izuku's time. Good job, Midoriya, he says as the next heat goes. This continues until the end of the day as Aizawa gathers all of the students together. He sighs. Many of you did pretty well. However, some of you have a long way to go. However, you are Class 1A, and a lot of you I expected better from. I better see your A game in the coming weeks, especially a few of you. You know who you are, he says, before letting them go, dismissing them to go home. A couple of weeks of normal classes pass as they all walk in. Today was the day of their first hero classes. They had a couple of weeks to settle down and get used to the regular hustle and bustle of school life. However, now was the time to finally see what's their hero teacher and what their hero classes were going to consist of. They sat down eagerly, jittering in their boots, basically just shaking, jumping up and down, some of them twiddling their fingers or bouncing their leg up and down, anxious. All of a sudden, however, the door slams through, sliding through so fast that it shatters and breaks as wood falls to the floor. All Might stands in the doorway, smiling. I am here? He says, looking towards the door. He scratches the back of his head. It appears I overdid it. He laughs in that famous All Might laugh before looking towards the students, throwing each of them their hero costume. So, are you ready for your hero class? He says with a giant smile as all of the students jump in the air holding their hero costumes. Yes, they all say, as they rush off towards the PE locker rooms to get dressed. They meet All Might in this sort of dark room with a giant screen as cameras litter the screen all over. He separates the students into groups before telling them which team they're going to be on and if they're going to be heroes or villains. He pairs up Izuku and Todoroki to be heroes, while he pairs Bakugo and Ida to be villains. They walk out towards their respective building as Izuku looks towards Todoroki. So, I assume this is a test, right? We have to make a plan? I mean, we can't just go in on our first hero class without a plan, right? Todoroki just looks at him. Why don't you just stay back? I'll take care of it. Izuku looks towards Todoroki. What? I wouldn't expect the son of Endeavor to be this arrogant. I thought you'd be at least a little more humble, Izuku says as Todoroki eyes him, shooting daggers at him. He doesn't feel like saying another word to him. At this point, Todoroki's still cold and mysterious, just nonchalant. All Might tells the heroes it's go time as they walk into the building. Todoroki gliding, using his ice, sliding off, leaving Izuku alone. Izuku sits there, wondering why Todoroki had left him. He went off somewhere else. Izuku looks behind him, hearing sparks fly as he jumps out of the way as a giant explosion comes barreling towards him. I don't know what you did, Deku, and I don't know how you managed to get a quirk, but you'll still be worthless to me, and you're still less than me, Bakugo says, eyeing Izuku, his words filled with malice and hate, spitting them, snarling at Izuku. Izuku looks towards Bakugo. You're as heroic as ever, Bakugo, he says to him. Bakugo laughs. Yeah, right, he says, jumping towards him, explosions flying behind him, reaching towards an explosion towards Izuku. However, Izuku puts cursed energy into his hands to block it, hardening them, making sure that Izuku takes a brunt of it without being injured. He ducks below another explosion before punching Bakugo right through his gut with cursed energy, sending him flying through the ceiling into the second floor. Bakugo coughs out blood. What the hell? I didn't think he was this strong. He chokes out before anger fills his face and his expression once again. No, I can't lose to this Deku so easily, he spits out, jumping, lurching towards Izuku again, sending explosions firing off towards him. Sukuna's mouth reaches towards Izuku again, or appears on Izuku's cheek. So this is the dude that tormented you your whole life. He laughs. You just gonna let him call you Deku? He taunts Izuku. You're gonna let him call you worthless over and over again? You know you're stronger than him. Prove it. Prove it to yourself and me that you can beat him. And prove it to him. Imagine the look on his face when you beat him, he says, taunting Izuku, before Izuku whispers to him, that's enough. His face cold. He isn't as so happy-go-lucky as he once was. Deep down, Izuku wanted to beat Bakugo, and he wanted to beat him bad. Those years of bullying and all the determination Bakugo tried to rub Deku off of, he wanted to get rid of that determination that Izuku had. And Izuku finally had enough. He was going to prove it to Bakugo, prove it to him, that he is just so much better than him. And so, Bakugo rushing back towards Izuku, sending explosion after explosion, until a horn sounds, erupting over them. Todoroki had incapacitated Ida and touched the bomb, successfully winning. As All Might tells them to each pack up and go back to where all the rest of them were. However, Bakugo didn't stop. Hatred filled his eyes as he sent flying towards Izuku, explosion after explosion barreling behind him, allowing him to reach such fast speeds, barreling towards Izuku. A sick smirk reaches upon his face as he reaches out towards Izuku, sending an explosion right towards his face. However, Izuku ducked under it once again, jumping back behind Bakugo, punching him in his back, sending him flying through a wall. Bakugo shakes his head. I've had enough toying with you. Reaches his hand out, his grenade arm extended towards Izuku. All Might over the loudspeaker. That is enough, Bakugo, he says as Bakugo throws the pin away. An explosion so powerful, lunging towards Izuku, exploding as the glass for all the windows explodes out, shooting out towards the ceiling, even part of the wall exploding. As Izuku looks towards it, I'm not going to be able to survive this, he thinks to himself. In chain. All of a sudden, Sukuna appears in Izuku's body, slashing right through the explosion as the explosion is sent flying upward. He sighs. You really sent him for a run for his money, he says, markings scattered across his face as Bakugo looks completely shocked. A complete 180 in Izuku's attitude. What the hell? He thinks to himself. This isn't Izuku. There's no way. His energy, everything about him, it's completely different. He jumps towards Bakugo, touching him, punching him right across the face as he basically activates Cleave, slashing the entirety of both Bakugo's grenades, destroying them instantly. He and Izuku had made one small promise, just like Yuji did in JJK, that he couldn't hurt any of Izuku's friends. So he knows he's not going to hurt him too bad, at least. He can play a little and walk the line. As Bakugo's grenades and gauntlets fall to the floor, completely shredded, he looks confused as he slams his hand into the floor, spiderwebs scattering across the floor as the floor just completely gets shredded. Bakugo starts falling through it as Kuna reaches towards him, grabbing his head, slamming it into the ground with cursed energy, knocking him out. as the minute is up and Izuku regains control, standing over Bakugo's body as All Might rushes in, grabbing Deku with his arm. "That is enough, Midoriya," he says. He sighs, looking towards Bakugo's unconscious body. "This is going to be a long year," All Might says. We cut to see Izuku and Bakugo sitting in Nezu's office. "Look, Izuku, I know you were just defending yourself, and that's why you're not as much trouble as Bakugo," before harshly turning his gaze towards Bakugo. "But young Bakugo, what you did is unacceptable. As All Might told you that the round was over, you still continued to fire off and fight Izuku, forcing him into a situation where he had to knock you out." Bakugo stood there, just completely silent, his gaze lifeless almost. Izuku, the worthless Deku, had beaten him. He had beaten him good, completely demolishing him. It was unheard of. What could have caused this? He thinks to himself as Nezu snaps with his paws right in front of Bakugo's face. "Wake up, Bakugo. I'm serious. Because of this, I'm going to suspend you for a week. Give you time to think about your actions. You're not going to be able to come with us or come with Class 1A on their field trip to the USJ this week. I expect no more outbursts out of you," Nezu says, raising his voice, a very rare characteristic for the principal, before sending both Izuku and Bakugo away. Bakugo grabs Izuku's shoulder, spinning him around. "I don't know how you managed to get a quirk, Deku, but I'm gonna figure it out, and I'm gonna beat you. Don't think this sun power boost makes you any stronger than me." Izuku looks towards him, his gaze calm. "Haven't you learned, Bakugo? All those years you bullied me, I'd been working. Well, yes, you have a strong quirk that you were born with. All you have is talent. I will work harder than you ever will, and that's where you will fail," Izuku says coldly towards Bakugo before turning his back on him, walking away. "Don't you..." Nezu stands in his doorway, looking at Bakugo, as Bakugo shakes his head. "Yes, Nezu," he says under his breath, walking the opposite direction as Izuku. Izuku walks home and basically sits there, sitting at his desk, just completely shocked. His entire life he had been tormented by this one person, and within a minute he had watched Sukuna completely and utterly dismantle Bakugo's entire reputation and ego. He saw how easily he had managed to defeat Bakugo, and Izuku wanted a piece of that power, and he was going to get it. That was his ticket into becoming a hero. We jump forward to the USJ as all of the students who weren't suspended sit on their bus, as the bus bustles off towards the USJ with Aizawa standing up. "Alright, class, we're going to go through multiple different types of hostage and rescue civilian situations here at the USJ. Take this serious. This as if it is one of your first hero missions. Be cautious, don't hurt anybody, unless you have to," Aizawa says before sitting back down. As they arrive, 13 greets them before opening the doors to the USJ. The entirety of Class 1A is shocked. They all say, "Wow, this place is amazing," they think to themselves. "I can't believe we're going to be training here." They all look around, absolutely stunned, until a portal opens up right beneath their feet, scattering them across the USJ, including Izuku, as another portal opens up with tons upon tons of villains piling out. At this time, many of the UA students thought that maybe this is their situation. This is what they came here for. It was villains, and many of them would act fast, going in, taking out, incapacitating villain after villain. However, this wasn't a test. This was real villains, and many of them would soon realize this as they were actually getting injured. And no one would realize this more than the group still at the main entrance. Aizawa and 13 completely shocked, telling the students to get back. Upon that, many of them would instantly realize this isn't a drill. This is real. These are real villains, not the test they had assumed it was. They all look around, looking towards each other. What is going on? They think to themselves as Aizawa and 13 continue to tell them to get back. They yell for them to try to escape. This is a real villain attack, one they had never seen before. They all look towards each other before jumping off, jumping away, trying to get out. Hirogiri tries to block the doors, but a few of them manage to escape. They manage to get out as Ida races off towards the main UA building, racing to try and get the UA teachers' attention, trying to get them there to come help. We see Izuku, Asui, and Mineta, just like in regular My Hero Academia, standing on a boat as water villain after water villain starts climbing up, trying to get to them. Izuku punches each one of them with cursed energy, yelling for the others to stand back. Izuku, seeing this, decides to try something, tries to use Sukuna's shrine ability. He sends a slash right towards one of the villains. It's weak, but it works. Izuku had managed to use one of Sukuna's cursed techniques. This was only just the beginning for him, he thought to himself, as Sukuna's mouth appears on Izuku's cheek. Huh, I never thought you'd be able to do that, he says to him. Well done, kid, he says, before saying in chain, taking over Izuku's body, jumping into the water, taking out each and every villain, before jumping up towards the main part of the building. He sees all of these villains look towards him. Izuku had just made himself the center of attention. Aizawa, taking out villain after villain with his scarf, yells for Izuku to stand back. This isn't his fight. He is not a pro hero, and if he tries to fight and attack, he could get himself hurt, or even worse, killed. Izuku just shakes his head towards Aizawa. It's not Izuku after all, it's Sukuna. Don't worry about it, old man, he says, taking villain after villain down, using his dismantle and cleave techniques, shredding villain after villain. However, he was killing them. He wasn't just knocking them out like a normal hero would. Within his minutes, Sukuna was killing these villains. He knew that these villains weren't Izuku's friends and weren't something to be messed with. And so he decided to act on it, slashing villain after villain until Shigaraki would step in. He would point towards Izuku, taking out each one of these villains with the Nomu there. He'd point towards Izuku, yelling for the Nomu to go after him. However, there was only 15 seconds left with Sukuna's abilities or his possession. As he goes and fights the Nomu, he toys with it, not realizing he only has a few seconds left, toying with it so much that Izuku regains control. Once again, however, this time he is in a fight to the death with a giant, mindless freak of a bird. Izuku stares towards it as the Nomu's punch comes barreling towards Izuku's head, slamming it down into the tiled USJ floor as Izuku coughs up blood. What the hell? He thinks to himself as the Nomu barrages him with punch after punch. As Aizawa yells Izuku, he knew this would happen. He stood there in horror, watching Izuku kill villain after villain. However, now he stood there motionless, watching Izuku die. However, just as he thought Zuku's time was up, the doors of the USJ would get punched off as All Might comes flying in, punching the Nomu's head, sending the Nomu flying back. He looks towards Izuku, seeing Izuku's unconscious body. He picks him up, jumping over towards Aizawa, dropping him off. I'm not even gonna ask, he thinks to himself, before jumping back towards the Nomu. Izuku's body, though, sitting there slowly begins healing, a reverse cursed technique working on Izuku to heal him and heal all of his injuries. As this is happening, All Might continues to fight the Nomu, one punch after one punch, yelling plus ultra, sending the Nomu flying through the roof. As Shigaraki goes back through the portal, seeing as his Nomu bodyguard was no more, with Kurogiri telling him that it was time to go. Shigaraki agreed as they leave, leaving the rest of the villains to be taken out by the UA teaching staff. They look towards the floor, seeing hundreds of dead villain bodies scattered across, many of them chopped into pieces. Sukuna's shrine technique allowing him to send slashes across them and cutting all of these villains had killed so many of them not strong enough to withstand these slashes. And the only person that really knew that this had happened was Aizawa. Many of his classmates didn't really understand that it was Izuku slashing them, and they weren't paying attention either, having their own villain fights to work with. And because Aizawa was the only one, he'd tell Nezu about it, and Nezu would shake his head. This is bad, he thinks to himself. A freshman UA student killing all these villains? We're heroes. We're not supposed to kill anybody. As much as I hate to say this, and it pains me to say this, we have to cover this up. No police were called, as all of the villains would be placed in a secret hero prison, basically designed to keep all of these villains out of the limelight. And the police and news would never get a hold that this villain attack had happened. UA even telling their students that they cannot tell their parents. This is to be kept under wraps. This is a major flaw and failure for UA, and if it were to get out, many of them might not be able to continue going to school here. So with that, they all go home, battered and bruised, being healed by Recovery Girl, as many of them are still shocked and are just thinking. They're confused. They don't say a word to their parents when they get home, going straight to their rooms, thinking like, did that really just happen? Did I really just fight villains? Many of them pumped up, like, yeah, I just fought villains and yeah, I defeated them. But many of them were scared. They had just fought villains like it was the real world, like they were real heroes. And they weren't sure what to do about it. To distract many of the students from this, UA decides to make the UA Sports Festival happen a couple of weeks early, allowing for them to get all of this off of their students' minds. So with that, the students walk into school ready and prepared to compete. This is something that they were looking forward to, and now that it was happening sooner, they couldn't be more than excited. They loved the idea. They needed to get their mind off of whatever had happened to them at the USJ. So we skip forward to see all of the students standing in a dark pit. The doors slowly begin opening as a bell rings. The first event of the UA Sports Festival begins, the obstacle race. Izuku jumps forward using his speed that he had managed to gain while training to get himself in front of the pack. However, it was not proved to be useful, as many of the people around him would seem to pass him extremely fast. Izuku knew that this would occur. He's using his basically top level human speed, not using any power or quirk to launch himself, propel himself even forward, and because of that, he falls back in place. However, he does stay in front of those whose quirks don't help them in the speed category. Izuku gets around all of the obstacles with ease before managing to slot himself in a very modest 10th place. This gives him and his future team for the cavalry battle a solid 50-point headband, which of course wouldn't be enough to pass, however it would give them a solid starting point. As Izuku sits in the locker room watching the TV, watching as his classmates continue to struggle with the obstacle race, we see Bakugo sit down next to him, holding the 10 million point headband in his hand, laughing. This is just another point of proof, Deku. I'll always be better than you. As Bakugo laughs, looking towards Izuku. You knew you couldn't beat me in a race. You knew it, he says. This is another futile attempt of Bakugo trying to get under Izuku's skin, and it was not working. Izuku looked towards Bakugo before shaking his head, standing up. Just leave me alone. This is just sad, Bakugo. I thought you were better than this. He looks towards him and tells him, as Bakugo's face drops. He sighs to himself, not falling for Izuku's rage bait as Izuku smirks and walks off. He watches the screen as the rest of his classmates pass, funneling back into the main part of the giant UA Coliseum. Izuku walks in from the locker room as he looks towards many of his classmates, looking towards who he would want on his team. He looks around with finally slotting his team with Uraraka, Ida, and Mei Hatsume. These were his main friends at UA apart from Mei, as it's just like regular My Hero Academia. Izuku would become instant friends with them, and the rest is history. So with that, Izuku chooses his team for the cavalry battle. As they begin the battle, Izuku sits atop with his headband around his head, tied tight. He knows that the 50-point headband isn't the best, however, it certainly will do. It has to, at least, and he knows that people aren't going to be gunning for him. They're going to be gunning for Bakugo, which, of course, Izuku wants to do as well. He wants to get that 10 million point headband. It would be so funny if Bakugo said all that smack right before the event started just to lose it. So, with that, the bell rings as Midnight yells "Go!" over the screen, as all of the students race towards each other, trying and gunning for all of their headbands. Izuku looks around, reaching towards grabbing a couple of headbands that are close, using his curse technique to amplify his hands, allowing him to reach for them faster and grabbing them quickly. Izuku, however, sees his goal, Bakugo sending explosion after explosion towards all of the people racing towards him. However, Izuku knows that it wouldn't work to race towards Bakugo at this moment. Bakugo is pretty much stopping all of these attacks from happening, and there's still 20 minutes left on the clock. If Izuku were to get that headband, there's a solid chance that everyone would shift their focus towards him and would end up stealing it back. So Izuku waits until the clock strikes 30 seconds left. He reaches towards Bakugo, telling his team to sprint towards them as Ida and Mei use their powers and Mei's contraptions to propel the team forward. Izuku reaches towards Bakugo, punching his face with cursed energy, ripping the headband right off of him. As Bakugo looks shocked, seeing Izuku smirking towards him, grabbing the headband, quickly tying it around his head, As the bell sounds, Izuku's team won and won in first place, stealing the 10 million point headband. Bakugo and his team had managed to lose it and had been eliminated. They wouldn't go on to the second round. Bakugo started losing his mind. How could this have happened? Before seeing everybody look at him and deciding to chill. Now is not the time or place. So with that, we cut to see the 1v1 section of the UA Sports Festival, the last section as well. Izuku steps up to the podium, as so does Shinso. Well, not podium, the arena, as Shinso and Izuku stare each other down. The bell sounds as Izuku launches himself towards Shinso, as Shinso starts asking him different questions. Izuku is confused by this. Why is this kid just trying to ask him so many questions? Izuku thinks for a moment before deciding to answer one, as Shinso smirks, thinking he got him. However, upon trying to mind control Izuku, an immense type of fear washed over Shinso. It was as if something was telling him that this wasn't a good idea and it wasn't going to work. Izuku lunges towards Shinso again. This mind control that Shinso tried to use didn't work, as Izuku punches him hard right in the gut. No cursed energy at all. As Shinso takes a step back, coughing out blood, as blood pools down from his mouth. Why didn't it work, he thinks, as Izuku punches him on a cheek, sending him flying across the arena. He barely manages to catch himself right by the corner as he tries again, going to try and brainwash Izuku and mind control him, but it doesn't work again. He can't do it for some reason. Sukuna possessing and being the host within Izuku is stopping from Shinso from entering Izuku's mind and mind controlling him. And because of that, Izuku is easily able to eliminate Shinso from the UA Sports Festival. It just simply did not work for him. And because of that, Izuku punches him once again in the stomach as Shinso falls on the grass, unconscious, eliminated. Izuku's next opponent, just like in the normal timeline, is Shoto Todoroki. Izuku hasn't faced off against him or even really seen him use his quirk since their first hero class together all the way back then, and even then it was literally just him using his ice to glide on the floor. So he isn't quite sure about the magnitude of Todoroki's power, but yet he does know that it is quite powerful. The match begins as Izuku and Todoroki stare off against each other. Todoroki shoots his hand forward as a giant iceberg erupts towards Izuku. It comes barreling down towards him as Izuku dodges it, slashing it in two using Sukuna's Shrine Cursed technique. With each passing day, as Sukuna's abilities basically leech and mold themselves into Izuku's body, they get stronger and stronger. This time with the iceberg, fragile and basically a little weak, basically shatters into shards with Izuku's slashes. As Todoroki sends iceberg after iceberg, wave and wave of ice, barreling towards Izuku. However, it doesn't work. Each attempt gets slashed into bits and pieces by Izuku. Izuku continues doing this as he slowly gets closer and closer towards Todoroki until he's right in his face, reaching towards a punch, cursed energy flowing off of Izuku's fist, going in to punch Todoroki across the face, backing Todoroki into a corner, forcing him to use his fire. Seeing this, Todoroki jumps back, shooting fire right at Izuku. Izuku barely managing to dodge as parts and tips of his hair are singed off, burned black. Izuku smiles at this. I never seen you use your fire before. I wonder why, Izuku says, his voice straightening out. Could it be his secret technique, maybe? Could it be that he's hiding it to hide its true power? Izuku jumps towards him again, ice sent flying at him by Todoroki, Izuku shattering it once more. As he reaches in for another punch, with Todoroki countering it with fire once again, Todoroki keeping his absolute distance from Izuku. Izuku, realizing that he wasn't going to be able to get closer towards Todoroki, decides to send a slash right towards his leg. Not strong enough to cut it in half, but strong enough to cut it deep enough to where it would start gushing out blood. Todoroki sees this happen as he reaches down towards his leg, trying to mend his injury, but it's too late. This subtle opening allows Izuku to get up close to him, punching him with cursed energy over and over again, using his hand-to-hand combat that he had learned in the martial arts gym, as he would then punch Todoroki right out of bounds. This would allow Izuku to go and face Ida in the tournament's finale, which would be a lot easier of a fight for Izuku than Todoroki would. Ida would race towards Izuku using his engines, trying to get towards Izuku, however he simply couldn't. Izuku would simply dodge each one of Ida's kicks before going in and countering himself with a punch. Each time Ida would get slower and slower and weaker until finally Izuku would have enough, cutting off part of Ida's boot, causing him to fall down before Izuku would knock him out, crowning himself the victor of the UA Sports Festival. With that, the entire crowd would cheer as Izuku stands atop the number 1 place on the podium. He holds his medal up high, smiling bright, pumping his fist in the air. We cut forward to the next day as the crowd erupting and the noise of the crowd slowly fades away into memory. Izuku sits at his desk before opening the drawer. There, a bunch of letters spew out, all asking Izuku to intern with them at their hero agency. However, none would stick out more to Izuku than the internship with Night Eye. This was a unique opportunity. Izuku knew after loving All Might for so long that Night Eye would barely ever give out internships, and so this was few and far between. So, without a second thought, Izuku would accept it and would race off to go to Night Eye's agency, as the rest of his classmates would go to find their respective agencies as well. With Izuku going off towards Night Eye's agency, Izuku finally makes it there, walking in as Night Eye stands there right in front of the doors, waiting for him. You impressed me, Izuku, he says with a calm voice, looking into his eyes, looking into him with his cork, before shaking his head. Something's blocking my vision from you. I can't see your future. That's weird, he says to himself, before giving a small smirk, a very rare occasion. I kind of like that. A bit of mystery. Maybe showing how powerful you really are, he says to Izuku as Izuku smiles. Thank you, Night Eye. It's a pleasure. Night Eye then brings him up to speed on the entirety of the overhaul situation. Because of how strong Izuku proved himself to be in the UA Sports Festival, Night Eye saw Izuku as a unique piece, possibly the final piece to the puzzle in bringing down Overhaul. And because of that, he offered Izuku a spot in basically trying to take down this villain. As Overhaul would say this, All Might would walk through the doors. Night Eye would sigh. It's time, isn't it? All Might would nod his head as the two of them would walk into a back room. Izuku, confused by this, would wonder what was going on, but would basically shrug. I mean, Night Eye was All Might's sidekick after all. They were probably just talking. We cut to this room as we see Night Eye looking at All Might. All Might laughs a little bit before telling Night Eye his plan. You know how much I need a successor. I have two options. That boy standing out in your front office, Izuku Midoriya. Or I can give it to the leader of the big three, Mirio, just like you had originally planned. Night Eye nods his head before placing his hands on his chin. This is actually quite harder than I thought it would be, he says, before shaking his head. It has to be Mirio. That boy offers such unique talents and abilities that no one else could rival. It has to be him. I like Izuku, but I just don't see it. I couldn't see his future. And that mystery, I just can't do it. All Might nods his head. Alright, Mirio it is, he says to himself, as he goes off to find the leader of the big three. Night Eye walks out of his office, apologizing to Izuku about the slight interruption. Now, where were we? He continues to tell Izuku about the Overhaul raid and how Overhaul basically is this lead of this giant underground villain organization. Izuku nods his head as the two of them go off to do some scouting together. Night Eye wants to continue mentoring Izuku further, to continue learning and teaching Izuku how to be a hero, especially a hero in the way of All Might. So, with Izuku following shortly behind Night Eye, they go out and look around, spotting Overhaul walking around with a little girl out in public. This was different. Night Eye hadn't seen this. This had to be a very, very rare occasion. He looks forward towards Overhaul again as the two of them disappear into a back alleyway. This is different, he looks towards Izuku and says, I've never seen him with a girl before, especially one so young. Something's off. Something's very, very wrong and very off, he says as Izuku nods his head. What could this be? Could he have kidnapped her? Oh, Overhaul, what could he use this girl for? Izuku thinks as Night Eye shakes his head as well. I'm not sure, but whatever it is, it can't be good. Their internship continues to go as Night Eye transfers Izuku to Endeavor's agency while Night Eye continues to research on his computer, seeing as Endeavor's agency would give Izuku more hands-on experience while he continued his research. Because of this, we see Izuku go off and meet up with Endeavor, who initially is very cold towards him. Izuku had managed to beat his own son, his successor in the UA Sports Festival, and because of that, Endeavor knew how powerful he was, but also didn't want to offer Izuku any signs of respect. So with that, Izuku, Endeavor, and Todoroki go out looking for villains, which they end up finding the Hosu incident, where bunches upon bunches of Nomus are scattered around Hosu City, taking out civilian after civilian, knocking them out, causing chaos, supposedly as some sort of giant distraction. Endeavor sighs seeing this before jumping in, telling the two of them to basically just stay there. Don't do anything stupid. The two of them, being some of the top prospects of UA's first years at the time, decide that they're not going to get bossed around by the number 2 pro hero in Japan. They are going to go out and look for villains to defeat. Maybe not the Nomus, which they know rival that of All Might, but they are going to go out and look for villains, which they end up finding. Izuku and Todoroki turn a corner and find Ida sitting there with Stain standing over him, his sword draped down, pointing towards the middle of Ida's neck. He looks towards Ida before reaching up to slash him down as Izuku jumps in and punches him across the face. He would not let that happen. He would not let one of his best friends at UA die at the hands of the hero killer Stain. Todoroki, seeing this as well, jumps in and encases the hero killer's feet in ice, as the hero killer tries to move, but he cannot. Izuku goes in and uses Shrine and slashes the hero killer's arm, making the hero killer drop his sword. With one sword down, Izuku jumps in, going towards the side and punches him across the face as Todoroki freezes the other half of his body. He's stuck there, incapacitated. With that, they call the police as the police arrive and other pro heroes as well, arresting the hero killer Stain a lot faster than they did in the My Hero Academia original timeline. As they do that, Endeavor shows up and shakes his head. I can't say I'm not proud of you two, but I can say I'm disappointed, he says before walking away, taking the credit for the capture, as if they were to find out that a couple of UA students had defeated it, it would cause a lot of uproar, as they can't use their quirks in public either, as they don't even have a quirk license yet. So because of that, the rest of the Hosu incident comes to a close. Hero Killer Stain is captured. Ida is in the hospital, as the rest of the classes and all of Class 1A finishes their internships up. We cut forward in time to see all of the students walking in to UA. It is now finally time for their final exams. A lot of the students giddy and excited. They cannot wait. This is the final exams, and they've spent all year training for this. They have spent so long to finally get here, and alas, they are. So with that, we see them walk into the classroom, and written on the board is all of their names, paired together in duos, which they are then paired up against a teacher. Izuku and Bakugo, funnily enough, are paired up against All Might. Izuku sits down at his desk before smiling and shaking his head. Could this be Nezu's doing? He thinks to himself, laughing to himself. If so, that would be quite funny. We cut forward to see all of the students with their hero costumes on, as Izuku and Bakugo are getting ready. They are the final exam of the day, and they are stretching. The doors open as All Might races in. He has a 5-minute head start. Izuku and Bakugo have to somehow incapacitate All Might and place tape around him in order to signify they had captured him. Izuku and Bakugo look towards each other as the 5 minutes are up, and they both race in. Izuku trying to plan with Bakugo something that they could do to capture All Might, but Bakugo is not having it. He in no way wants to work with Izuku. And because of that, he jumps off ahead, much like Todoroki did in the Heroes vs. Villains first hero class that the rest of the class had. So because of that, Izuku trails behind Bakugo, yelling for him to stop, but it's too late. Bakugo is flying above the tops of the buildings, looking for All Might. Izuku looks around as he sees All Might jump towards him, a shockwave getting sent behind him as Izuku jumps over him. All Might stops in his tracks before turning around, going to punch Izuku, which he dodges. He sends a flurry of fast, insanely quick punches, barreling towards Izuku. However, each punch Izuku somehow manages to dodge before punching All Might with cursed energy right in the gut, which is turning into one of Izuku's signatures. As he punches All Might right in the gut, he is sent flying backwards, but he catches himself before going into a building. It appears you're a lot stronger than me, young Midoriya. Well, I shouldn't say that. You're a lot stronger than I may have imagined, All Might says cockily, trying to act as much as a villain as he can, before jumping in, barely grabbing Izuku's hand, launching him down, flipping him over his shoulder and slamming him right into the concrete road as particles of it erupt, exploding off. As Izuku stands there in a pile of rubble, he barely manages to get up, coughing out blood as blood pools around his head. I'll admit, Izuku says, barely standing from the pain, that was quite rough, he says, before he starts using a reverse curse technique to reverse all of his damage. Somehow, someway, it works to heal Izuku despite not being from cursed energy. Izuku heals himself using this as he is once again fine, drawing upon Sukuna's ability to use reversed curse technique so that Izuku can heal. However, this would prove futile. All Might jumps in once again. Izuku dodges his punch, but it's too late. He doesn't dodge the second one as All Might's second punch lands right on Izuku's head, sending him flying through multiple buildings. Many of Class 1A gasps in horror and in shock. Man, All Might's really not pulling any punches here, is he? They say to themselves. As All Might jumps towards Izuku again, punching him in the head once more, sending him flying right back through the holes of the buildings that he had just created. With that, we hear Sukuna say in chain, and Izuku's marks turn onto his face. He is possessed by Sukuna once more. However, all of a sudden, we hear explosions flying by as Bakugo comes flying in right towards All Might, sending an explosion right into All Might's face, blowing off one of All Might's signature yellow bunny ears. As All Might stands there seeing his hair fall to the floor, he just shakes his head. Quite fiery, young Bakugo, before he punches Bakugo square in the face, breaking Bakugo's nose. Bakugo is sent flying backwards as he catches himself, holding his nose, pinching it so that blood doesn't spew out of it. Bakugo breathes heavily, sweat drenching his arms as he reaches for his grenade, pulling the hook as a giant explosion comes grasping towards All Might, reaching towards him, trying to get there, but All Might dodges it. It is futile. Bakugo's attacks are nowhere near enough. All Might lurches himself towards Bakugo again and absolutely pummels him. Punch after punch, Bakugo can do nothing. He can't even counter it. All Might completely mops the floor with Bakugo as Bakugo gets knocked out. We think that is over, but Izuku steps out of the rubble. His face, his eyes changed as All Might looks towards him. He hasn't seen this since the last time Izuku has basically destroyed Bakugo in the Heroes vs. Villains assignment. All Might breathes. Now this might get interesting, he says, as Sukuna launches himself towards All Might, going punch for punch with him, his physical strength on par, if not even better than All Might himself. All Might goes for a punch, but it's dodged. Every single punch All Might throws, it's either blocked or dodged. It's almost as if Sukuna was toying with All Might. He was playing with him. It wasn't going anywhere. As Una finally jumps back, putting his hand on the floor as spider webs spew out of it. He's starting to use his curse technique. He had enough of toying with the number one pro hero. With this, the ground starts to break and shatter underneath All Might as he begins falling. He sends multiple dismantles racing towards him. As All Might is cut, blood starts seeping through his hero uniform. Class 1A is at the edge of their seats. They're staring on in awe. There's no way, right? Izuku's actually going blow for blow with All Might. Maybe they were wrong. Maybe All Might was going a little easy on Izuku, right? After all, there's no chance that Izuku is somehow going blow for blow on the same par as All Might, the number one pro hero in Japan, if not the world. Izuku, or should I say Sukuna, continues this attack until finally he goes in, punching All Might with cursed energy around him, sending him flying back before he decides to use Divine Flame. He chants open as a flaming arrow appears, sent flying towards All Might, hitting his weak spot, causing All Might to burst out, sending blood flying out of his mouth as he begins coughing, steam erupting from All Might. Many of the students are confused. Izuku regains control. The minute is up, but that minute was just enough time. All Might is no longer standing. He is unconscious, and he isn't in his strength form. He is in his smaller, bony, weaker form. Many of the students stand there confused, with Recovery Girl racing towards All Might's side, seeing All Might just completely knocked out and in his form. We cut forward to see All Might sitting in a hospital bed as the rest of Class 1A surrounds him. They're all just so confused and shocked. They question him. All Might, what was that? Why did you all of a sudden just basically turn into a cloud of smoke and you were no longer your muscly self? He coughs in his hospital bed. You see, I fought a very strong villain back in the day. One that left me this scar, he says, pulling up his shirt as a crater is seen in the middle of his chest. It's very, very nasty, he says. And because of that, I managed to lose part of my power. And now, I can only sustain my muscle form for only a few minutes every single day. All Might says, as the rest of the class is shocked. They can't believe this. All Might was so powerful, and yet Izuku had just hurt him even more. Could this signify the end of All Might? With that, the rest of the students pile out of the hospital room, shaken and confused. This number one hero, All Might, was so much weaker than they had thought. It was, in a way, really humanizing. All Might was just like them, a human, and he had faults. He could get hurt. It was almost unbelievable. They had looked up to him for almost 15 years of their life, and now they saw him frail and weak. They couldn't believe it. With that, the final exams are over. Every single member of Class 1A had passed, despite Izuku and Bakugo knocking out All Might and injuring him. Well, should I say just Izuku, despite Bakugo getting knocked out very easily. Both of them did manage to pass, passing their first year of class. And with that, as a treat, UA decided to take all of them on to a training camp, a Quirk training camp up in the woods with a mysterious kitty cat hero group that was going to train them all. However, Izuku wasn't invited. Well, he was. However, because of because of Izuku interning with Night Eye had asked Nezu for explicit permission for Izuku to not go. Night Eye wanted Izuku with him so that they could continue chasing after Overhaul. As Night Eye believed if he had Mirio and he had Izuku with him, if they were to get into any trouble with Overhaul, that they would be able to hold their own and escape. And because of that, he invited Izuku to come with him to continue getting this real-world experience without having to go be at the Forest Cork training camp. So with that, we see Izuku head off to Night Eye's internship and hero agency, while the rest of Class 1A heads off towards the Cork training camp. So we'll split over to the Forest Cork training camp with all of Izuku's classmates practicing their corks up until the nighttime. A mysterious purple portal opens up, the same one from the USJ, as the Vanguard Action Squad comes out. They come in searching for Bakugo. They want to kidnap him. All for One saw the hatred in Bakugo's eyes. They saw how villain-like he was, and they wanted to take control of that. They wanted to manipulate Bakugo and turn him into a villain. And because of that, they came in looking to kidnap him. And because Izuku was not there, the young kid, Koda, would end up perishing at the hands of Muscular. So, meanwhile, we cut back to see Izuku at Night Eye's agency. Him, Mirio, and Night Eye are walking around looking for Overhaul. They're looking for any sort of opening, any giveaway that they can. However, they don't find anything until they go back to Night Eye's agency. One of Night Eye's scouts had happened to find a complete map of everything. They had managed to use their quirk to map out Overhaul's underground bunker. He put it up on the screen as Mirio, Izuku, and Night Eye sat there staring on at the screen before them. They looked before it to see that all of these tunnels and different things, there's giant openings. They stared on, looking confused, wondering what they were going to do. This was a whole lot bigger than they thought they had. Night Eye looked towards it, pointing at different entrances and different parts of the building before telling them what they need to do. This is so much bigger than they had ever thought, and if they're going to do it, they need to catch them by surprise. So with that, we cut back to the forest training camp where we see Todoroki and Bakugo fighting Mr. Compression, as all of a sudden Muscular comes out of nowhere, grabbing both Todoroki and Bakugo's heads and slamming them into each other, knocking both of them clean out unconscious. Kirishima rushes in, hardening his arms, punching away at Muscular's muscles, but it is no use. It doesn't work. Muscular continues to punch and punch and punch as both of them go blow for blow, but Kirishima's hardened continues to chip away. It is no match for Muscular's ability, and Kirishima is fatigued. He had just spent the entire day practicing his quirk, so it's no wonder why he is so tired still. And because of that, Kirishima, the last line of defense in securing Bakugo's safety, is defeated. They grab Bakugo, compressing him down into a tiny marble, and as well Todoroki. And with no Izuku, Bakugo and Todoroki are kidnapped, brought back to the League of Villains hideout. Upon getting back, we see both Bakugo and Todoroki tied up on chairs. Shigaraki sits across from them, staring at them intently. I don't see why we had to bring them here. Couldn't we have just killed them? He says, but they shake their head. We need them. All for One appears on the screen. Besides, I have a feeling Bakugo and Todoroki could make very, very useful. He smirks to himself, before asking both of them if they want to join the League of Villains. Both Bakugo and Todoroki instantly yell out, "Hell no! Why would we ever join you?" they say. Todoroki a little more quiet, with Bakugo just as fiery as his personality always is. As Bakugo and Todoroki continue to thrash at their restraints, saying they would never join the likes of the League of Villains. Especially those that attack innocent people. They stand for no reason. The League of Villains laughs at them. "You think we stand for no reason?" they say. Cutting back to the forest training camp, we see all of the rest of Class 1A gathering around. Aizawa was standing there taking roll before realizing that Bakugo and Todoroki are gone. "This isn't good," he says. Cutting forward to UA now, we see all of the teachers surrounding a conference table. They're discussing their next moves. They need to find this hideout, and they need to rescue these two freshmen. They cannot have two freshmen get kidnapped by the League of Villains on their watch. And so they make a plan. All Might and Mount Lady and all of these heroes make a plan to go in and take back Bakugo. They weren't going to sit idly by as Bakugo is kidnapped and possibly getting tortured. And so, because of this, we then see the raid on the League of Villains commence. With no Izuku, the Ida Kirishima Izuku group to rescue Bakugo, like in the original timeline, doesn't in fact end up happening. Bakugo and Todoroki, however, are left to fend for themselves, with Mount Lady slamming through the League of Villains bar, and Best Jeanist and Kamui Woods coming in, taking out, subduing many of them. Bakugo and Todoroki fight free from their restraints. They fight back, getting free and fighting the League of Villains as a portal appears. All of a sudden, all of them are sunk deep into the ground. They can't move. Just this aura, this presence, it's crippling. As All for One steps out of the portal, his mask his breathing slow and heavy, stepping out of the portal. "It seems you have forced my hand, heroes," he says, taking another step as they sink deeper into the ground. Gravity cork, possibly, many of the heroes think. All Might jumps in, barreling towards All for One. He is the only one that can stand beneath this massive pressure. He jumps in, reaching towards a punch for All for One. We cut back to when the forest training camp was happening, as we see Night Eye and Izuku and Mirio all making their plan. They now have a group of heroes together as they plan their raid. They jump in, smashing through the doors, racing through, taking out villain after villain, searching for any hope of Overhaul and Eerie. With Overhaul standing there next to Eerie, he grabs her and rushes her off into a safe house room. He pushes her in before jumping out. He is pissed. The heroes had finally found him, and he wasn't going to get taken down. He rushes out, grabbing his newly released anti-cork bullets and pistol. Rushing out as he spots Mirio and Izuku fighting a couple of villains. He reaches out, shooting towards Mirio. However, with Mirio's newfound strength in One for All, he easily dodges these bullets, looking towards Overhaul, jumping towards him as Overhaul sends giant bits of concrete flying towards him, touching the ground. He is not going to be taken. He still has work to do. With this going towards Mirio sinks into the ground as Izuku manages to slash it away using Dismantle. He has continually been able to use Sukuna's Dismantle ability and his Shrine. And so Izuku slashes through these before jumping towards Overhaul, going for a punch. However, Overhaul grabs Izuku's hand, exploding it instantly as Izuku jumps back, his arm dangling there. No more, just his arm left, his bicep hanging, anything below his elbow completely eviscerated and exploded, gone. He is shocked. Izuku can't even fathom this as he stares down in chain. Sukuna takes control once more, jumping towards Overhaul as Overhaul reaches out his hand, but Izuku dodges it. Overhaul continually tries, going towards Izuku, reaching towards him until a hand grabs his foot. It's Mirio. He starts coming out of the ground before yelling, "Power!" He yells, punching Overhaul right in the jaw as Izuku and Mirio go and fight together. Sukuna fighting with Mirio. It was something he hadn't done in ages, and fighting heroically. It was weird. It was almost as if Izuku's determination and his heroic personality had slowly begun changing Sukuna's thoughts, changing him wanting to be the king of curses, the king of just everything evil. And with that, Sukuna jumps in, slashing Overhaul's hand, cutting it clean off as Mirio goes in, yelling power once more and punching him to the ground. Overhaul taking off his final glove somehow, barely managing to rip it off without using his other hand as it was gone, reaching towards Mirio, trying to end this. But Izuku, now using his cleave ability, or Sukuna now using his cleave ability, slashes Overhaul's other hand off, way more powerful, his arm completely missing. As he stands there, completely shocked, just utterly confused. What? This can't be, he thinks, standing there, his quirk now rendered useless. He is no more. Night Eye appears, not dead now. His ability, seeing this, seeing Overhaul destroyed, he rushes in, punching Overhaul across the face, yelling at him, "Where is she? Where is the girl?" he says, demanding it from Overhaul, looking right into his eyes as Overhaul just shakes his head. His plan, everything, it's all for nothing. He was defeated. With that, they find Eri as Izuku and Mirio go back. They see Eri and know how basically scared and insecure she is due to Overhaul, and they basically try to help her get better. As with that, Night Eye basically allows to pull some strings, giving Izuku his hero license early due to all the help him and Mirio had done with Overhaul, giving Izuku his basically introductory hero license, allowing him to use his quirk in public for good. And because of that, this was 2 weeks before the League of Villains raid, with Izuku now having his very own license or hero license to use his quirk in public. He could join in on the League of Villains raid. However, they didn't want him to. UA told him specifically, do not go in. Do not go in and try to join that fight. They held him at UA because they knew he would want to. And as Izuku watched the TV screen, watching All Might struggle mightily against All Might, Izuku had to do something. He shatters a window as one of the teachers there, sitting there trying to watch him, just shakes his head, knowing he couldn't catch up to Izuku. "Just don't get yourself killed, kid," they say under their breath before kicking the ground. So arrogant, they think to themselves. Izuku racing off towards All Might as we see All Might struggling now against All for One. Struggling as each passing punch goes deeper and deeper, causing All Might to barely be able to do anything. All for One continues to heal. All Might can't do anything. As All for One ends up seeing Izuku rushing in, he sees Izuku just basically sprinting into the fight as Izuku uses his dismantle, sending a slash barreling towards All for One. So fast it seemed as if it was cutting through space itself. However, All for One used a speed quirk and swapped places with All Might. Izuku's dismantle slash cut All Might clean in half. All Might's body fell backwards, slumping against the floor, as his legs stood there, still standing. A helicopter zooms in on the legs, completely shocked. All Might is down! All Might is down! The news reporter says, as tears begin streaming down their face. Is this the end of Japan? The end of the hero era? All Might is dead, he says. Gasps go and erupt across the nation. The number one hero is no more, killed by his own student. Izuku stops in his tracks, completely and utterly shocked. How could this be? He thinks to himself. I couldn't have killed him. I couldn't have. A mouth appears on his left cheek. Just as I was starting to trust you more, kid. Obviously, this All for One guy is a lot more than you bargained with. Why don't you go ahead and give me full control and I can just take care of him, huh? He says as Izuku shakes his head, still and just completely and utterly shocked. I can't believe this. I killed All Might, he says, falling to his knees, looking at his hands. How could I have done this? My idol, the symbol of peace, is dead at my hands. Izuku thinks to himself as All for One jumps in, going towards Izuku, sending these staticky fingers launching towards him, going in, launching towards the kill. As Sukuna says in Chain, you really gotta stop being like this, kid. Look, you killed him. That's it. Get over it. You're gonna get yourself killed if you keep doing this, and I'm gonna have to bail you out again, he thinks, as he jumps back, dodging these staticky fingers that were racing towards him. Sukuna looks towards All for One, smiling, all four of his eyes glaring towards him. Well, this is quite the quirk you have here, kid. Maybe I may have to, borrow it, huh? He says, lifting up both his hands, looking down towards Izuku. Izuku shakes his head, or rather Sukuna, as Sukuna says, open. Divine flame begins as he sends arrow after arrow barreling towards All for One. All for One easily managing to dodge all of it as he races in, going in for a punch, his fist flaming as he sends it flying down towards Sukuna. However, Sukuna barely manages to dodge it. Todoroki and Bakugo both jump in, sending their quirks flying towards All for One. They had just seen All for One kill All Might. As they saw it, Izuku tried to kill All for One, but All for One had swapped them around. And they weren't having it. They jumped in, trying to help Izuku, and it wasn't working. All for One easily incapacitated both of them and knew what he had to do. He grabbed both Bakugo and Todoroki as his hands glowed, stealing both of their quirks, now with a fire and ice and explosion quirk, as their bodies fall limp to the floor, completely unconscious and corkless. Izuku stands there, shocked. No way. No way. This can't be, Izuku says out loud. There's no way you could have taken their corks, Izuku says, launching towards him. The minute of Sukuna had long since passed due to Bakugo and Todoroki jumping in. He launches towards All for One, using his cursed energy, going in, trying to punch him. But it wasn't working. It wasn't doing anything. A mouth on the side of Izuku's cheek appears. Alright, kid. My minute may be up, but I'm gonna help you, alright? Look, if you can manage to land a punch, and then within 0.5 seconds, apply your cursed energy onto that punch, you can do something called a black flash. It magnifies the power of that punch so much. That's the only way I think you could beat him, he says, at least without me. Izuku looks towards him. Alright, I'll give it a go, he says, jumping towards All for One, jumping in, going for a punch, trying to apply his cursed energy right at the perfect time. But his timing was off as he is slapped away, sent flying into a skyscraper as the skyscraper begins falling on top of him. However, right before this was the case, we see Mirio jump out of the skyscraper, grabbing Izuku and pulling him out, right as the skyscraper collapses. Jeez, that was close, Mirio says, before telling Izuku he's gotta be careful. They can do this together. As he jumps in, but right as he does, Shigaraki reaches right towards Mirio. Mirio barely dodges this as Mirio and Shigaraki begin fighting. It's the new successors of All for One and One for All fighting, while Izuku is left to pick up the scraps of his misdoings, of his accident. He had managed to accidentally kill All Might, and now he had to take care of what he had caused. As Izuku jumps in, trying to use Black Flash again, and it doesn't work, getting sent flying back again, barely using cursed energy to cause All for One's attacks to not deal nearly as much damage. Izuku rushes in once more towards All for One, this time finally getting it right, using a Black Flash on All for One, sending him flying backwards, leaving a giant crater-sized hole in his chest, barely missing his heart, as Izuku sees All for One's heart pumping out just barely. Izuku goes in for another Black Flash, but All for One dodges it as his regeneration quirk regenerates his body. You're gonna have to be a lot faster than that, kid, All for One thinks to himself, leaping towards Izuku once more. Izuku somehow dodging this again as he sends another Black Flash, landing it, but it's no use. All for One manages to regenerate again. Izuku this time now decides to give in. He gives Sukuna more control, giving Sukuna as much time he needs to fight and defeat All for One. Sukuna smiles, thanking Izuku for what he has done as he jumps towards All for One, having enough of his BS, slamming a Black Flash right into him, completely obliterating his lower half. This time, cursed energy enveloping the bottom half of All for One, causing him not to be able to regenerate. He's, what? How? He thinks to himself as the markings stretch across Izuku's face once more. You may be able to toy with the kid, but you're not going to be able to do the same with me, he says, jumping back towards All for One, sending a divine flame, saying open, sending hundreds of arrows flying towards All for One, each single one landing towards him as All for One coughs out blood, his mask bursting into flames as he uses his arms to tear it off. Even if his breathing was bad, it would not be as bad as being set on fire. tearing his mask off as he looks on towards Sukuna, who smiles towards him. "You know you can't defeat me," he says. "It's over. Just give up now." All for One tries to regenerate again, but it's no use, sending out tentacles towards him as he uses his dismantle and cleave ability to chop up All for One's body. Everyone staring at home, watching the news, looks on in horror and in awe. The hero that had killed All Might on accident or on purpose had just killed All for One. Izuku sees now All for One's body through Sukuna's eyes as he fights back Sukuna's control, but Sukuna is reluctant, not wanting to give it up just yet. However, Sukuna gives in. "Alright, kid. You've impressed me enough. I'll fall back. I've done what you needed. Let's see what you have now," he says, as Izuku regains control. Looking over, he sees Mirio fighting Shigaraki, and he's struggling. What Izuku had not seen, or what Sukuna had not seen, was All for One extending his arm through the ground, grabbing Shigaraki's leg, transferring All for One into Shigaraki. If All for One wasn't going to be the one to have world domination and to defeat One for All, Shigaraki was, and it was his plan. Shigaraki laughs, his hair slowly turning white. This was it, the final battle between All for One and One for All. Mirio, using One for All, punches and punches Shigaraki, but it's no use. Shigaraki sends him flying back as Mirio uses Black Whip to hold himself up, allowing him not to get flown back into a building. He grabs Shigaraki with Black Whip, sending him down into the rubble, but Shigaraki just jumps right out of it again. It wasn't working. One for All was struggling. Izuku, having just defeated All for One with Sukuna's powers, leaps towards Shigaraki, trying to use Divine Flame. He had seen Sukuna use it multiple times, so why not himself be able to use it? Izuku says open, sending arrow after arrow with extreme precision, flying towards Shigaraki, sending flame after flame into his body, as Shigaraki manages to dodge just barely. He uses some sort of teleportation quirk as Izuku's accuracy is pinpoint pristine, but yet each arrow misses. Shigaraki had managed to dodge every single one. Mirio jumps in, reaching for a fist, reaching towards trying to punch him, but Shigaraki manages to dodge again. How in the world does this keep happening? How can they not manage to land a single punch? Izuku jumps down, slamming his hand into the ground, using the cursed technique of spiderweb, using a cleave to shape the ground, destroying it, destroying buildings around him so that Shigaraki couldn't use them whatsoever, but it was no use. Shigaraki jumps up, using his grandmother's quirk, Nana Shimura's float, standing there above both Mirio and Izuku, raining down fire. All for One had given Shigaraki all of his quirks too, including fire and ice and explosion. Fire, ice, explosions rained down from Shigaraki's hands as Mirio and Izuku were left to stand there and watch. They couldn't believe it. Was this really how it ends? An eye and a mouth appear on Izuku's shoulder. "You know you got this. You're better than this. You're just gonna admit defeat like this and make me revive you again?" Sukuna says, snarling at Izuku. Mirio looks towards him, seeing this mouth and eye on Izuku. What is that? He thinks to himself before shaking his head. Now is not the time to worry about any of these weird markings that Izuku has. Izuku sighs. You're right. Sending a giant cleave barreling towards Shigaraki. This was the most cursed energy Izuku had put forth into a cursed technique ever. It was the most he had ever drawn upon Shrine Sukuna's ability until now, and it had worked, slicing through all three: fire, ice, and explosion, slicing through all of them with ease. As it reached Shigaraki, slicing into his stomach with such precision and accuracy, hitting him. As Izuku jumps up into the air, using his strength, gripping his fist, going in, punching Shigaraki right where the slash had just hit him, using cursed energy, using a black flash as he sent Shigaraki flying backwards. Shigaraki coughs out blood, completely shocked by this absolute insane level of power and ability, jumping back, struggling to stay on his feet as Izuku grabs Mirio's hand, launching him forward as Mirio gets a punch, but this was only a distraction. It wasn't nearly as powerful as what was coming next. Izuku sends black flash after black flash right on to Shigaraki, completely eviscerating him, leaving nothing left. Shigaraki is dead. And with that, so is All for One. Izuku stands there, breathing heavy, completely and utterly shocked. Oh my gosh. What was that? Izuku says to himself. I can't believe that. I can't believe what I just did, Izuku says, as he passes out from using so much of Sukuna's abilities and cursed energy. Mirio stands next to Izuku, nodding his head. You did well, Izuku. We managed to do it. We won the final battle. I can't believe that. However, Mirio looks over, seeing All Might's feet still standing in the air, before his smirk fades, shaking his head. It's not without loss, he says, walking over towards All Might's feet, picking them up and placing them down next to his body. The news helicopter zooms in on Mirio doing this as a solemn expression goes over the anchor's face. The final battle. It's over. But at what cost? All Might, the number one hero, is dead. We cut forward to see both Bakugo, Todoroki, and Izuku all in the same hospital room in UA's facility with Recovery Girl. Izuku wakes up first, seeing Bakugo and Todoroki there next to him. He looks towards Recovery Girl, asking him if they're alright, but she shakes her head no. It appears that upon Shigaraki's defeat, their quirks were gone with it. They don't have quirks anymore. They are quirkless. Izuku looks on, saddened at this fact, towards the two of them. It was slightly ironic how Bakugo is now quirkless after all those years of bullying he had towards Izuku, but for Todoroki, I mean, he was just caught in the crossfire. He didn't deserve to be quirkless. He shook his head. I can't believe this, he says under his breath. They can still be heroes, right? Izuku says. Both of them can be so heroic, slightly lying about Bakugo. As Recovery Girl shakes her head. The damage they received having their quirks stripped away from them, especially after using them and training with them all their life, it put too much burden on their bodies. I'm afraid they might never be able to do anything heroic again. Izuku sighs as his teachers walk in. Izuku, we need to talk. Izuku walks with his teachers as they take him into a press conference. All of these news anchors asking him questions upon questions, especially about All Might's death. They were interested. Izuku had killed All Might, at least that's what it appeared to look like to them. And so they were just completely and utterly confused and wondering what Izuku had done. He told them how All for One had swapped places with All Might to allow Izuku Slash to kill All Might instead of him. It's a sad day, Izuku says, as he shakes his head and the press conference comes to an end. Yue allows Izuku to continue classes after defeating the two final bosses, especially with Muriel. Night Eye continues to have Izuku internship with him and even sponsoring Izuku, allowing for Izuku to graduate early, as Izuku and Muriel would go on to be the two top heroes in Japan. Bakugo and Todoroki would remain quirkless, but would be on the sidelines helping to do hero work as well. Bakugo would do it begrudgingly, while Todoroki was a little bit more accepting of it. And with that is where I am going to end What If Deku had Sukuna's abilities. If you're wondering why Sukuna didn't try to take over another body like he did in JJK with Megami, I'm just going to say it's different. It's My Hero Academia, and because of this different world, Sukuna saw no reason to take over a different body and fight against Izuku to try and become on top again. He had no point to, and he, in a way, kind of liked Izuku. He admired him a little bit and liked how Izuku was the perfect vessel for him and was fine living and coexisting with Izuku. So yeah, I hope you all did enjoy this What If, especially it being 2 hours long. I thank you all for watching. Please remember to join the Discord in the comment section below, and it's also in the description. I will be replying to replying to as many comments as I can. I thank you all for watching once again, and goodbye.